Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. Before I jump into our next segment, let me remind you guys, if you miss any Rules of Engagement, if you miss any WCS content, any of the Last Winter Championship, etc., every single thing we do here at MLG can be found at youtube.com/official. MLGSC2 for free in 1080p quality. Go ahead and check it out. Again, youtube.com/official. MLGSC2. There's a lot of cool playlists all separate to whatever type of things you want to see. A lot of really cool play of the days. The play of the days are, it's like a minute or two, so you're watching your favorite streamer, they just jump out of a game. You've got, got 2 minutes before they really come back into their next game. Boom, play of the day, no problem. Get entertained 24/7. So our next segment is going to be another Scarlett versus Jim game, and this one's going to be on Neoplanet S. It's going to be about basically defending the 2-base timing in Protoss versus Zerg. So we're first going to talk about how to defend that 2-base timing, then we're going to talk about using Neural Parasite against Protoss, and also late game, trying to mix Ultras and Broodlords and use them as a composition where you have both of those high-tech units at your disposal. So we're starting to replay off the 9:30 mark. And the one thing we're going to notice here is that Jim is going for a pretty fast 2-base timing. See, there's no more probes being produced. He's already moving out with some Immortals, some Gateway units, and whatnot. The game opened a little bit funny, so this is kind of like, it's similar to the 2-base partying Sentry Immortal timing, but it's not quite as much gas available, not quite as many gateways available, and it's moving out a little bit differently, but it's because the game, there's early pressure to slow down both players. So everything's been a little bit thrown off, but it's basically just any type of heavy 2-base timing, your opponent's going to be cutting, somewhere around 36 to 44 probes, moving out with Sentries, Immortals, or even if it's Gateway units, a committed 2-base timing. So the key thing here, that's super important. As a Protoss opponent, as a Protoss player, you're going to go straight to your opponent's natural base. Don't mess around with their third base, go straight to the natural, because you know that the Zerg can afford to sacrifice their third base after teching. And because he scouted, he knows that Scarlett was teching. So he wants to kill the creep tumors, he wants to back up, because right now he only has 3 Zealots. If he committed 2 for on a creep, these speedings would be very cost efficient against his comm situation. It's a backup, wait for another warp in. And then a super important thing why you want to go straight for the naturals, because you want to kill them before the spine cores get up. Now, let's rewind this for a second. The most important part for a Zerg player. If you ever are teching and you want to defend a 2-base timing, right? When you're doing this, it's the same build we saw Scarlett do last game. She gets the lair, she gets the upgrades, a late third base. If you're ever doing this type of build, remember how I said you want to avoid Roaches, Hydralisks because they're not cost efficient, you're not going to have the money? What that means, if you're going to avoid these units, as soon as you know a 2-base timing is coming, which you saw the 2 Immortals, that pretty much made it very likely it is. You can probably run back in and confirm. But she's very confident it's probably 2-base timing. You want to use Spine Crawlers. You can't defend this with Roaches, Hydralisks if you have a relatively equal economy to the Protoss. Maybe slightly better, but relatively equally, Roaches, Hydralisks aren't going to cut it. Spine Crawlers are your best friend. Just build a Spine Crawlers, but continue teching. Don't cancel 1-1. Keep getting an Infestation Pit. But get a whole bunch of Spine Cores and just build a bunch of speedings. And that's your best defense right there. It's going to be very cost efficient. Yes, you'll lose the third base. Don't worry about it. That third base isn't too important. And if you're a Protoss opponent, you know, okay, I'm going to be behind if I can't do a lot of damage, so we're going to have to try to make this attack work anyway. You want to try to wait for enough Zealots to bust the Spine Cores unless you can hit them before they're up. In this case, Scarlett, because of course she's good and was scouting, was easily able to get the Spine Cores up on time. And so when the Protoss player attacks at the main threat of Spine Cores, go ahead and utilize Hallucination as opposed to Force Fields, right? I mean, you want to save a few Force Fields, help out against the Zerglings, but the main threat isn't those Zerglings. The main threat is, of course, the Spine Cores. Hallucinations can help tank some of the damage. I would have probably liked to just do Mass Zealots instead of getting the Immortals. But I don't know. I mean, the Immortals, they look kind of cool. They might be intimidating. And some Zerg players would focus Immortals for some reason. But then, worst case, you can't break the natural. As long as you don't lose your whole army, you can always back up, kill the third place. But you're still in trouble because you're an equal economy to a Zerg player who's been teching aggressively. So that's why, of course, you're trying to play catch-up right now, going for the Colossi tech. And the Colossi tech is very important because it's difficult to take a third base against an opponent with upgraded speedlings unless you have those Colossi. So now we're in a situation where both players are kind of feeling each other out. If Scarlett went Swarm Host instead of Infestors, maybe she could just win the game with a Swarm Host push from here on out, but Infestors are still a solid choice as well. Of course, they're very cost efficient with Fungals, Infested Terrans. If the Protoss tries to take a third base before a Colossus gets out, and you can hit that third base with an Infested Terran speeding time and you're just Fungal and speedings, you're going to be in very good shape. Even if you can't hit that timing, you usually run around with speedings, maybe force 1 or 2 cancels on that Nexus until the Protoss gets up enough units to really defend their natural and a third base at the same time from a variety of threats. You can see here Scarlett again wasted no time going straight to Hive, continuing her upgrades. What she did, because she lost the third base, which hurt her gas income, she didn't continue with the armor upgrades. You notice that? Just getting the attack upgrades. The attack upgrades are more important for the Ultra strategy. Armor upgrades are nice too, but attack is much more important. If you think about what's the threat to the Ultras, the Immortals, armor's not really going to help out much against that. It helps out against Zealots, but Heartless Swarm Ultras kill Zealots so fast it doesn't really matter anyway. So really want to get the attack primarily. If you have, a solid 3-base economy, you get both. If you don't, focus on the attack. And now we also saw Scarlett do something where she got Neural Parasite. So you're going to try out something a little bit different this game. And what she's going to do is she's going to go for this Neural Parasite attack. And if you're ever using an attack like this, remember, most of our army right now is actually, not most, but most of it's infestors. But the non-infestor part, a big chunk of it is these queens. And if you ever want to use queens in a composition, remember, like I said last game, it's super important to spread that creep out very aggressively. You just can't really fight off creep. If you try to fight off creep, the queens won't be able to keep up. They won't be able to deal with an opponent who's kiting backwards, and so forth and so on. The other important thing, if you're going to try to use Neural Parasite against your opponent, 2 things are really important. 1, bring an Overseer with your army. A good Protoss opponent who thinks you might have Neural Parasite will be using Hallucination. We already saw Jim do that in the first engagement. Again, he's making some Hallucinated Colossi. That's there, so if you Neural Parasite the wrong unit. Number 2, always lead with something other than Infestors. If you lead with all the Zerglings, or ideally even you lead with the Queens, just charge them in there. If they take the first shots from the Stalkers, that can buy you, even if they refocus after like 1 or 2 game seconds, if it buys you enough time to cast 5 Neural Parasites, or all of a sudden you Neural Parasite to 3 Colossi and to 2 Immortals, all their key units, which of course you need to have an Overseer there to identify which ones are which. Then all of a sudden, if you Neural Parasite those key units, their Stalkers, even if they start to try to focus down your Infestors, will all die very quickly. Because you can see here, if you lead with the Infestors, they just die right when they try to cast Neural Parasite. And then Infested Terrans are nice, but again, they're not the most useful ability. Because their opponent, even if they can't beat them, they can just walk away. So there's good news and bad news. The good news is, I think she killed a couple of Stalkers and an Immortal or 2. The bad news is, she lost more than half her Infestors and used up all the energy. And is going to end up losing probably all these Queens here as well. And she lost all her speed. So that was a situation where she had a huge advantage. And now all of a sudden, it's about an equal game. 3-base to 3-base, both players have good tech out. It's an equal game. And what happened there is basically, in general, I would suggest not using Neural Parasite. It can be good if it's done perfectly. But to be done perfectly, there had to be creep spread out there. It had to be Queens in front of the Infested Terran, or in front of the Festers, and all the Neural Parasites have to be cast within like an insanely fast amount of time. It's very difficult to use it against Protoss. I would recommend not using it. Because you can see if it doesn't go well, all of a sudden you give up the advantage that you had from holding up the 2-base timing to start the game. So now going forward, Scarlett, of course, taking the 4th base, getting the ultralisk, and also look at this. She noticed her opponent had a good amount of robotics units. What that means is, okay, ultralisk may be great, maybe I can end the game with them, like I did last game, but just get that Greater Spire. Have that backup plan, because it's better to not have to force an engagement, saying, you know what, I don't have any other way to tech out of this. I pretty much have to go and engage my opponent, but I can't find a good angle. He's always hiding on top of a ramp. Maybe he builds a gateway wall right here. Very difficult to engage with just ultralisk. That's why you get that Greater Spire in case you can't find that engagement point. Also, I mean, you can't really engage off creep because the Queens won't be able to keep up. So if your opponent keeps his creep push back, the ultralisk won't work. Excuse me, in that situation as well. So very important to have that backup plan. Going forward, Scarlett, of course, because the creep's not at their opponent's doorstep, can't really find a good way to get that ultralisk attack working. Going to try to harass on the back way, but of course there's a wall in there to help out as well. So what she's doing is she's going ahead and trying to add in these Broodlords. And now as she's adding Broodlords, one thing to realize, this is the one situation where she doesn't want a base race. Normally Zerg would be super happy to go ahead and just take out the 4th, and the Protoss would take out the 3rd. But, if there was a Mothership Core here, then it would be reset 3-base to 3-base. And this is a situation where right now, Scarlett has a much stronger army than her opponent, well, as soon as the Broodlords morph. Because this army cannot really deal with Broodlords very well. I mean, the Stalkers can do okay against him, but as long as the Ultras counter those, you're going to have a great advantage. The Protoss is not going to be close to Tempest at this time. So while Zerg normally wants a base race, this is a situation where Scarlett wants to force a straight-on engagement. Because even if the army size is slightly favored to Protoss, the Zerg composition is going to be more efficient if used correctly. And that's where we get to how to use a Broodlord Ultras composition effectively. And this is what it comes down to. It comes down to understanding the ranges of all the units. So, oops, let me get back here. So what's so important about this situation, if you look at it, there's basically only 2 really important ranges to know. 3 important ranges to know. The range of the Broodlord, the range of the Immortal, and the range of the Stalker. And the Immortal and Stalker have the same range. That's why I kind of said 2. But it's important to know that Broodlords can basically prevent the Protoss from moving past like a line that's range 9 away from the army, right? So the Protoss units can't really move past that way. Stalkers can blink forward, but the Immortals can't get past that area very well. Then it's also important to know, okay, the Stalkers want to attack my Broodlords. That's not working. If they want to attack my Broodlords, they have to be within range 6, so they have to be like right here. And then, knowing those 2 ranges, all I have to say is, okay, the ultralisk should not go past this red line, ever. And all I do is I wait for the Stalkers to blink or move past this red line, then I fungal them, and then the ultralisk go in to kill them. As long as the ultras stay behind this red line, the mortals have a very hard time attacking them. Yes, maybe they can, you know, get 1 or 2 hits off, but it's going to be very hard for them to focus them down. They'll be close to the queens as well. A very effective way to control those armies. That's the ideal way to use it. Keep the ultras back on hold position. As soon as the Stalkers come in, you fungal and you attack. But you have to be close enough that when the Stalkers blink in, you can immediately jump on those Stalkers. Now, sometimes it gets a little crazy. It's a little bit hard to do. So, if ever you kind of feel your army starting to fall apart, then's your backup plan. Your backup plan is make sure everybody's in the battle and attack them. And as long as you kind of get the good fungals off, you're going to do okay. Now, I mean, the problem is these Ultralisks are dying at a rate that ideally they wouldn't die because the Immortals are able to get hits off on them. But they're still doing good enough. And then backing away right here when they get out of Broodlord support range. So because the Broodlords and Queens are slower, when in doubt, yes, you can just go on that attack move. But you still want to make sure that none of your army chases outside the range of the rest of the army. So if your opponent kites back a whole lot and gets out of Broodlord range, pull back the Ultras. If they get outside of the area that Queens can go move around well in, pull back the Ultras again. So if it's hard for you to play that range game perfectly, don't worry about it. You don't need to. What you do want to do is just make sure everybody's engaging and make sure you don't chase too far with the Ultralisk and they get out of the range of their appropriate support units. And see, this is where ideally, if she didn't lose those Ultras earlier, she wouldn't have had to lose these couple Broodlords. Either way, though, it's game over. And it's game over because, I mean, you can see it. The Protoss lost their whole army. They're going to be mining out. 66 supply versus 136. That's the game. So, a couple quick rules about this game that's why Scarlett won. Is against a 2-base timing, use Spine Cores to defend using this type of build. Now, if you're doing like the fast 3-base mass roach style, that's a different type of approach. But if you're doing these tech-focused builds, you want to avoid those cost-inefficient units. Avoid roaches, hunters, and corruptors at all costs. So that means if you're being attacked, use the Spine Cores to defend if it's something that your speedings alone can't deal with. Use those spines to defend. Second thing, don't use Neural Parasite. There's some situations where if you're really, really good, it can be good, but in general, just don't use it. It's too complex an ability to try to coordinate with the rest of the way you engage your army. And then also, along with that, keep the Infestors in the back. Their role is to fungal. That's pretty much the only spell that's worth casting in Zerg vs. Protoss. Fungal growth. Keep a few of those Infestors in the back. Use them to fungal when the opponent gets too close. Make sure they stay safe so you never have to replace them as the game goes on. You replace your other units. Infestors should stay alive throughout the entire game. This wraps up the second segment between Scarlett and Jim. Take a short break and be on to our third segment, a TVT between Polt and Tasha.